Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Huddle. It is St. Patrick's Day, so naturally, we all have our grain. Although, Dan, yours is a small portion of grain. I feel
Yeah,
like,
just a pocket. I mean, if I had gotten the memo that we were all going to wear, bright green, then I would have done it.
yeah, I feel like that shouldn't be enough to. That's just enough to maybe keep you from getting pinched, right? It's just
Okay.
like the check the box. Anyway, we've got a buzzy little show for you guys today. President Trump proclaiming loudly that he wants to take over Cuba. And folks, he's dead serious about this. What does that look like and how will voters respond? We'll dig into all of that. We'll also discuss some sad news, personal news at the White House. Susie Wiles and her new breast cancer diagnosis that came last week. What does this mean for the Ice Maiden herself, as President Trump fondly calls her? But also, what does it mean for White House operations? We're also going to talk about a big loss for RFK when it comes to childhood vaccine revisions and some other vaccine revisions as well. Will the administration fight back now that they're having some issues in court? And then finally, Josh Shapiro, who, as you all know, is Jewish, testing out this sort of moderate position on Israel. Will the base want to hear it? That's my big question for Dan. You'll want to get his take on this. But first, before we jump in, Dan, you've got some new pointers on getting meds if you're sick with All Family Pharmacy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as I have mentioned before, there is really few things that drive me more nuts than having to go to the pharmacy and then stand and wait in line. Sometimes you get up there and you discover that actually it's not ready yet. And you sit there and people are coughing all around you. And frankly, it just kind of drives me nuts a lot of times. But thankfully, our new sponsor here helps make that a lot easier for you. All Family Pharmacy. You go online, you fill out a simple form, a physician reviews it, and assuming everything is on the up and up, you can go ahead and order your medications. They have hundreds to choose from. They arrive right at your door. And what better way to do it? You can go on Cozy Earth then and buy your bubble blanket, go plant trees. It just frees up time to do other things. And it arrives right at your door. So go to allfamilypharmacy.com/huddle, allfamilypharmacy.com/huddle, and use the code HUDDLE10 to get 10% off on your order today.
There you go. Thanks to All Family Pharmacy. Okay, let's look at the day book back here in D.C. Kevin Warsh, the president's pick for Federal Reserve Chair, is going to Capitol Hill today and tomorrow, it turns out, for meetings with senators. He's going to be fine in terms of getting that nomination through. I guess the question is just how quickly it's going to go. Any
I think the question, Tillis wants that lawsuit dropped. I think at some point,
pretty amenable, though. Tillis seems pretty amenable, or he's predicting that this is not going to be a problem. TBD. I guess we'll see.
I also think Thune may just bring it to the floor. I mean, I think they'll entertain him for a little bit, but he's retiring, so And
they've basically got a month and a half or 2 months.
Powell is chair till May.
Okay. Up in Maine, Governor Mills is going to start airing these ads against her rival in the Democratic primary, Plattner, for the sexual assault comments. Dan, you tucked this into the day book. I hadn't seen these ads. I may have just looked at them before we jumped on. They are they're intense. It's hard for me to see people watching these and it not making an impact. Basically,
well, but in which direction? Because
no, I mean, like, he's victim blaming in these comments, like literally victim blaming. It's ugly stuff. And I know
but this is, it's not new. For one, it's been in the public, conversation. And two, you don't go this negative on somebody this early unless you have a problem.
For sure. Right. We'll see if it makes a difference. Back here in Washington, 9 a.m., the vice president is going to be speaking to the Naval Observatory with the Irish Taoiseach. 10 a.m., GOP leaders have their press avail. 10:45, Democratic leaders on the Hill do their press avail as well. 11 o'clock, the president and the Taoiseach will come to the Capitol for the Friends of Ireland lunch. Sean, have you been to that? That always seems
I have. Oh, come on.
I think it's one of the greatest. It's in the speaker's lobby, right off the floor. It's really sort of a throwback to the good old. I mean, like, it's truly bipartisan in so many facets. Like, you've got both parties there, American, and then you've got like Sinn Féin. Like I was there with Jerry Adams and Edna Kenny was Taoiseach then. I mean, it's sort of like last night, by the way, was the Friends of Ireland dinner. I mean, excuse me, the Ireland Funds dinner. And it truly was like my table next was Terry McAuliffe, one of the people honored with Kathleen Clark, the minority whip, and Sean Duffy. It was like,
wow, that's a nice mix.
It was truly one of the like cool, like I've always thought it's one of the coolest dinners in DC because it's like it brings facets together of technology and like just truly to celebrate Irish heritage. Like there's no politics discussed.
Sean, do you enjoy the Patriots in the Super Bowl or St. Patrick's Day more?
Oh, well, St. Patrick's Day is part of the calendar. You got to earn the Super Bowl. So I love that part.
All right.
But here's the real question though. What's on the menu then? Is it like corned beef and cabbage and carrots, or like what is the
I'm trying to remember. I probably have a picture of it, but it's a plated lunch.
Guinness stout, Guinness light. You just have to go through the
You're
Guinness.
just gonna drink Guinness. Well,
yeah,
Sean can't drink Guinness.
And obviously, so the tradition, as you mentioned, it starts off at the vice president's residence. Taoiseach goes there for breakfast. They do a little photo op, go up to the Friends of Ireland lunch, and then the big Shamrock Fest is. So there's actually a bilat with the Taoiseach and the president. Then they do the presentation of the Shamrocks, and that's when it gets really fun.
I was going to say, this continues the schedule for the day. At 5 o'clock, the president greets the deputy first minister of Northern Ireland. At 5:20, he has the Shamrock Bowl presentation. So there you go. Fun stuff at the White House today. Pardon me. I still have this lingering cough.
I could tell.
People in the comments yesterday were telling me to mute my mic when I cough. I'm going to try to do that today. I just hope I can remember. Guys, if you're watching the show right now and you're a big fan of the show, go and subscribe to us right now on our YouTube channel. Our numbers, they've been growing. We've been pretty pleased. But what I need you to do is if you're watching the show, click that subscribe button. That will help our subscriber numbers even more. So please do that. It really helps the show. And before we jump in, I want to tell you about Fast Growing Cheese. One more ad for you. So America's largest, most trusted online nursery. They've got thousands of options for trees, plants, flowers, over 2 million happy customers. It is obviously spring, so it's the perfect time to reassess your yard, go out and pull out that old bush that has been dead on the corner of your house for several years. I may be talking about myself right now. Replace it with something fresh, maybe add a new flowering tree to your driveway, something else I am currently considering. And their website, I've got to say, it's incredible. It makes it super easy. All you do is put in your zip code. If you don't have a green thumb like me and you don't know anything about planting, it tells you which plants are good for the climate, where your house is located, how to take care of them, something that I obviously need help with, given that all the plants that I've ever had that were alive in my house are now dead. I'm going to try this again, and we'll see if it works. I just ordered a bunch of hydrangeas, as I mentioned to you guys yesterday. So right now they're having a ton of sales because it is spring and planting season. If you go to their website, fastgrowingtrees.com, you'll get 20% off of your first purchase with the code Huddle. Again, code Huddle, fastgrowingtrees.com.
I got the hydrangea, by the way.
You got the hydrangea from Fast Growing Trees?
Yeah, when I saw that thing pop, it's called Endless Summer Hydrangea. It's
that's the one.
Yeah, I love.
Well, there are different types of hydrangeas. There are hydrangeas that bloom in the spring. There are hydrangeas that go through the summer. You got to know your hydrangeas.
But I know the Endless Summer one. Like that's the one I bought too, Sean.
Right.
Does that mean it's gonna bloom like all year?
Well, the one thing is hydrangeas require a lot of water. A lot of water. You got to keep watering them. They are not. These are not cacti.
So basically, every day after the show, I need to go out and water them.
Yep.
I should just make it part of my routine.
Yes.
Okay,
Dan
this is good to know.
Democratic
See
strategist.
if they are the hydrangeas that go in the sun or not in the sun.
Right.
That's the other thing. Some.
Wow.
Right.
I learned a lot.
Know your hydrangeas.
There you go. And by the way, it tells you when you buy them, are they the kind that go in the front of your house, back of your house, depending on where the sun rises and falls. So there you go. It's great stuff. Thanks to our sponsors. Okay, let's jump in. Talk about Iran's regime perseverance. So we have said this on the show before that, we might decimate Iran's military capability, and we already frankly have, but to win at all Iran has to do is survive, right? And they're doing, frankly, a whole lot more than that right now. Just this morning, one of the Fox News headlines was Iran and proxies strike across region, disturbing flights and hitting hotels. They are tightening their grip on the Strait of Hormuz. There was this tanker that was hit off the coast of the UAE. I believe this was early Tuesday.
Yeah.
And they are also leading this new crackdown on their own people to head off an uprising. The Wall Street Journal was writing that, quote, Iranians say security forces are using fear to keep a tight grip on the streets. So we are now in our third week, right? Entering our third week into this war. And it is hard to sort of see the out in some cases when you look at a lot of what is going on still with the regime. There is a story in Politico this morning saying that Iran's grip on the strait has boxed us in, and it's going to be a much longer war, and that MAGA is starting to panic. Sean, do you think that this is now going to go beyond Memorial Day, and is MAGA starting to worry on that timeline?
I think in general, we have become a very impatient country. I was thinking about this morning in light of, our discussion coming up. I was like, okay, we're entering the third week. So we're at day, I think it was launched on a Saturday, Sunday. So we're at day 17, I think, if my high school math prevails. I was like, that's just insane to sort of look at benchmark any military incursion and say, okay, 17 days in, have you taken over an entire region? And look, I get who we are as a people and where President Trump has been politically on a lot of these interventions in the past. That being said, if we pull this off, as I've said, both in terms of the impact on the Middle East and the hedge against China is going to be huge. And long term, this will be a massive, massive win for the United States in terms of our security, both economically and militarily. I think there's the administration just needs to get out there and articulate more and more. I think Dan brought this up a couple of days. We are winning on the military front. That's unquestionable. We have air superiority. We have naval superiority. And we continue to decimate their leadership. Now, it may take more time than everyone wanted, where it's like, can you go in and snatch and grab the way that we've done in the last couple of missions? No, because this is a different beast. But I do think that, that question is, where's that balance between getting enough consequentially and wearing out the welcome of the American people's patience. So I don't know what that number is, but I have a feeling that we probably have some runway into April, and then it's going to, as we get warmer and people are driving more and they're making summer plans. I mean, I know that some people were talking about how airline prices might get impacted and their travel costs and their cars. So, as that gets more into front of mind, and I think that's probably that end of April, May timeline, that's where we're going to really have to pay attention.
It's Danny mentions, Americans generally are impatient, like they want this to be over with, but it's also the administration that said 4 weeks. So that's like we're more than halfway through that for the timeline they laid out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is, and I think this is where Trump is beginning to get boxed in. I think he wants to declare victory. I think last week he started trying to create the contours of victory. But as long as, one, the straits are closed, two, the regime is still in place, and I know technically we're saying it's not regime change,
right?
But here's the third problem: the nuclear materials haven't been touched. So if we declare victory and they control the straits, the regime is still in place in whatever capacity. They still have their nuclear material, and they're clearly replenishing their terror network, because Israel is in Hezbollah now and are going after Hezbollah in Lebanon. Yeah. By all accounts, it is a problem in Iraq right now for us. It's hard to take all of that together and simply say, we got rid of their Navy, they have fewer missiles, we're out, all of this was worth it. So I think now the problem is Trump is a visual guy, right? He likes the strong visuals. As long as there's smoke rising on your screen, and this is not MS Now, as you said, this is Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, Rupert Murdoch's empire this morning across the spectrum was all about, the fact that the Iranians keep hitting people. It's hard to say, don't believe that we've won.
Yeah. Well, here's the one thing I'll say is, I agree with you on the fact that if you keep telling people you've won, then
Yeah.
it's hard to then look at an image and say, well, then why? What is
Right.
what's that? Right. I do think there's a tweak that has to happen to the messaging, saying we are winning.
Correct.
Because we are. We
Yep.
are actually. And I do think, as far as some of the milestones that you laid out, we will take the straight. It's a matter of time. It's not that is just we have the military might, capability, etc. It may take longer than some people want, but we will get it. Their leadership is decimated. Their ballistic missile capability, their military industrial complex decimated. Their ability to replenish it decimated. So there has been a massive, massive victory on that front. There's no question. Their ability to strike us, to pose a threat to us, is severely, if not entirely, gone. And I think that
but to Israel, is it? Because they still have their nuclear weapons.
No. They don't have nuclear weapons. They have
nuclear material
uranium,
that's
which
right.
No, well, it was. The question is, so there's two things. There's the possession of uranium, right? And then the ability to enrich it. By all accounts, the ability to enrich it has been severely denigrated. Denigrated. Now, who has possession of the uranium, which again, that's at the end of the day, that's what you really want, is to make sure that the source material is gone. So I do think that there are some additional steps, yes. But as far as the threat in the short term and the medium term threat that Iran poses is taken off the table. Long-term threat and the ability to further enrich uranium and vitalize their nuclear capabilities, maybe,
and wreak havoc on the world.
Well, but hold on a sec, because I mean, just the Israeli intelligence is that the July attack did not set back their ability to continue to manufacture and get closer to the weapons. That's the problem, is we damage the exterior of those mountain entrances and facilities. But the Israeli intelligence, which is one of the reasons they want to go back in and change the regime, is we only set back months, not years, their ability to keep producing. Now, right now, obviously, they can't, because they can't get people in and out of there very easily. But this goes to the problem that Trump yesterday in the press conference talked about the nukes. We had to do this to prevent them from getting the nukes. They still have, that hasn't been really set back. And I think that's, again, it's hard to declare victory when your allies' intelligence is saying there's a problem still.
Just a couple quick things on this. Number one, new headline overnight: diesel prices now hitting $5 a gallon. Obviously not something the administration would love to see. But I want to go back to something you said, Sean, which is, we will take the straight. Is your thinking that, I mean, obviously they haven't broadcasted what they're going to use those 2,500 Marines that they have sent over there, like what they're going to be using them for. Do you think it's some sort of operation to take the coastline, and that's where this is ultimately going?
I think that, look, they don't have a Navy anymore. That's gone, right?
Right.
So it's now basically small boats and drones. And you can start to, there's only so much you can do. I mean, you still need people to go out and buy those, to procure them, to do, slowly that attrits. And so I'm just saying, at some point, there's no one left in the leadership to buy them, to procure them, to operate, to direct them. So that there is an attrition that takes place on that effort, right? So that's still a viable issue, because again, if you're a major shipper, whether or not you're getting hit by a missile or a 50 caliber round, it's still damage to your ship and to your crew, and you're not going to want to sail through the strait. So it's still not, it doesn't really matter that if you don't get it all, but I think we will do it. It's just going to be a matter of time.
I think the problem is you got to clear it, and then you got to hold it.
Got it.
That is, once those troops are on the ground, the Iranians know that if they were to ever hit our troops, oh boy.
Yeah, but see, this is where, at some point, the people who are doing that, Dan, and this is why I'm saying the amount of leadership that we have just completely taken out, and the Israelis talked about 2 additional key people last night. At some point, you have to have somebody that's leading the charge, saying, you go do this, you go do that, I'm ordering this strike. People just aren't going to go do it for fun.
Well, but that's the question, is can you take out that regime as you get, there's several stories that said because the Ayatollah was 86 years old, they were already beginning to plan for kind of the day after. So you're right. But I mean, all of what we're talking about, it's hard to imagine this is wrapping up next week. So, I mean, this is the problem. Then if you stretch into the summer, and I mean, there was one report yesterday that some people in the administration told Congress we may be there till Labor Day.
Yeah, September.
I mean, that is now suddenly, it's hard to see gas prices coming down. It sounds like they're going to ask Congress for $100 billion. That's when it gets real. You have troops on the ground, it's $100 billion, and we're there through Labor Day.
Meanwhile, we still don't have any allies volunteering to help us with the Strait of Hormuz. So,
No.
I mean, it's been one day, so we'll see. President is very persuasive when he wants to be. So we'll see what he can do on that.
By the way, I love the comment yesterday. I think we're on the same page on this. Like he said, I'm keeping a list. Like, it's funny because, I do know a lot of people watch the show from different facets of government. And it is something that is great to note. I mean, we talked about this yesterday. Ukraine is not a NATO country. And if you're going to claim that it's on our border and we got to be worried about it, Iran poses a threat to all of our oil prices, all of our security. They've been killing people all over the world. So, you don't want to help us. We'll keep mental note of that one.
Great, because we're not really helping with Ukraine either anymore. So they're like, all right, thanks.
We have a lot on our plate, Dan. That's for darn sure.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of which.
Yeah, well, let's add another one. Good point, Dan. Fair enough. Touche. Next topic is Cuba next? And I kind of chuckle at this because it's sort of framed as a question, and it's not a question. Cuba is next. The New York Times has new reporting that the Trump administration has told Cuba that for meaningful progress to be made in negotiations, they've been having these talks for a while now about the next steps for Cuba, that the president of Cuba needs to step down, like that has to absolutely happen. They are looking at sort of this Venezuela model, right? It's not regime change, but regime compliance. The U.S. is not going to push, for a certain leader to take the helm. They're going to let, the people sort of decide, even if it sort of stays in the family, same regime, as long as they play nice in the sandbox. And the president was asked about this yesterday. You got to listen to what he said because he sounds very confident. Let's pull up that element.
All my life, I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders. Castro was a very violent leader. His brother's a very violent leader.
Sean, in some ways, like this is quintessential President Trump negotiating tactic. I mean, just as he said, maybe we'll bomb some part of Iran for fun. Like that was a message for the leaders in Iran, like to take what he's saying serious. Same thing here. I could do whatever I want with it. Like this is him. But at the same time, like we know that if countries don't listen, he's going to take action here. So like, do you view this as an ultimatum? Like, get rid of the president or...
Oh, yeah. By the way, I got to tell you, I do love the candidness. Like, he's just like, hey, if you want to know the truth, I can do what I want. It's like nobody else, no other person would ever say that except Donald Trump.
For sure.
I do. I mean, look, if you're the president of Cuba right now and you watch the Maduro movie, you think to yourself, do I want a soft landing or do I want to end up in a New York prison? In all seriousness, I would say I would go, maybe this is worth a deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see some diplomatic and also if there's one thing that Marco Rubio really wants in his life, it's this. And so this is like the time when you call in, the guy that's been dying to tell the CEO his plan forever. And he's just like, now that you asked, I've got this widget. We got to design it this way. And here's how you mark. I think the second that he said Cuba, Rubio walked in and he's like, got a plan. He's like, okay, here's who could be next. Here's what we'll do with the palace. Here's how we'll arrange this. This would be a huge deal. I think a couple things that the president, again, and his team have probably thought through, but just as an FYI, I mentioned this the other day. We have it's called wet foot, dry foot. We have a policy on Cuba. if they get worried about the regime changing, instability, whatever, and they just boogie off of Cuba and start getting on rafts and boats and they hit our shores, they're safe. And we have to understand that's a massive non-combatant evacuation onto our shores in Miami-Dade County. And I think officials down there are very, very worried about that. Number one. Number two, the thing about Russia, about Cuba, is the hedge on Russia. Like the big picture about Venezuela, Iran, and now Cuba is we are really depriving our two main adversaries of key pipelines and key like geographic strategic possessions. Like being able to operate out of Cuba is huge. Venezuela, huge. So this is more than just folly for President Trump. I think he understands the strategic importance of what Cuba presents for our adversaries and our allies.
A couple things to note very quickly for people. There has been a humanitarian crisis obviously going on Cuba, and on Monday they apparently lost power entirely. They've been under the oil blockade, so this, it obviously helps our leverage in terms of sort of pushing them to a deal. And we should also keep in mind that the grandson of Castro has been the main negotiator for this with the United States, which is really intriguing. But like Dan, just to come to you on this, like, the fact that Cuba is even entertaining, listening to some of these demands shows how much, foreign policy muscle the president has built in his year back in office. I mean, he says jump, and the international community either says how high, or if they don't say how high, there are consequences. Like, there some? I'm curious. Do you think there are lessons that Democrats can learn from some of this stuff? I mean, I know they call it bully, but
it giveth and taketh, right? Which is, we go into Iran and the Chinese are laughing at us in their press and the Europeans are saying no. So there is, and yeah, they are. If you read that Wall Street Journal story about the Chinese media literally laughing at us for asking for our help, it makes you cringe, right? At how much they're kind of regaling in our struggles.
Iran's the trickiest one.
So
for sure.
I think on the one hand, we're getting a little lonely out there because we're turning off so many people. On the other hand, as Sean said, we are moving some balls forward. I don't think the Cubans are doing what they're doing in terms of working with us and potentially the regime collapsing because they think he's going to come in with the Marines. I think it's because we've cut their oil off. It was their lifeblood. The Venezuelans provided Cuba with oil, and in exchange, Cuba provided security, which, oops, turned out not to be a good trade, and medical services, etc. So without oil and no money coming in, Cuba is literally collapsing. I think the interesting thing is, I really wonder what the country's reaction would be. Let's say Cuba falls tomorrow. And as Sean said, there's a refugee issue. There is we need to get people into, some capital to stand up a new government. I think business is going to rush in. I mean, it was the Las Vegas of the Caribbean in the 1950s. My grandfather used to go there before it fell. I mean, it was a huge place for the entertainment and hotel industry. Does the country say, oh my God, like, here we are, we've got all these troubles in Iran and gas prices. I keep saying economy, number one issue by far, by a factor of like 10 in almost every poll. And now the president and Marco Rubio are focused on Cuba. I really do wonder if it will be celebrated as Trump did what no one, not even JFK, could do, or if there's an exhaustion factor of, my goodness, focus on the home front. I don't know. I
was going to ask Sean about whether it's possible to be stretched too thin from a military standpoint, but then you bring up the good point in terms of the politics of this, and that is like, how are the broader, not just Cuban Americans, but the broader population, how are they going to receive this, Sean?
I think on Venezuela, I think the administration did a really good job of sort of explaining the economic more than, and look, I don't mean to say this like in a disparaging way, but I think, we're very short-sighted in America. Our attention span is largely short. We're also to some degree selfish. Like, what's in it for us? Why are we doing this? I think the administration did a good job on both fronts on Venezuela. It was like short-term snatch and grab. Here's why this is going to benefit us. And they focus less on the national security message, which on a personal level, I think is more important, but I get what they focused on, the one that polled better, smart politics. On Iran, again, I'm a big believer that this is like when someone yells death to America over and over again for decades, you might want to take them seriously. I do believe they are state sponsor of terror. Like, again, I'm very pleased with how the president has done this. This is smart long-term for the United States. Politically speaking, though, I do think that this gets back to the discussion we're having. Do people recognize that this makes sense? Take your medicine now. This helps us in the future. I don't know that enough people, like, to be honest with you, in a midterm that gets excited. And on the Cuba front, again, if this was the only one, maybe, but to be like, hey, here's who's next. For a lot of people, they don't see the threat that Cuba poses because it's not. It's really more of a staging ground for other people.
Correct.
So, but you're not telling them not to do it. You're just saying it doesn't.
No, I'm saying that, like,
they're already doing it.
Right. It's gonna. I mean, I think that this is now become one of those when, not if. My only point is, I think that trying to thread the needle, explain to people why we're doing this, why it matters to you, getting everybody on the same sheet. I pointed out a few days ago when they really had everybody out there hitting the airways, doing stuff. That was great. Think about it. People, you can't wake up and see stuff on the news every day and have to scratch your head and say, what are we doing? Why? Like,
Sean, would you agree? And Rachel, let's say that we somehow wrap up Iran by Memorial Day, okay? And it's a success, right? Just loosely defined. And Cuba falls and is success-ish, okay? Do you agree the administration has got to refocus on domestic issues from now to the midterms? Like, he can't be like, okay, I'm 5-0 now,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, again, I've said this, Dan, you've heard me say this for 2 years. People vote for two fundamental reasons: their personal security and their economic security. How do I feel about what's happening in my life? And again, even though there are strong repercussions in both fronts on all of these foreign policy things, to get that to explain to me in my gut, how does that help me? It's a tough sell.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that housing is a great one. All of these things that sort of feel your pain and explain and make you understand that we're working hard for you matters.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's move on to our next topic. So Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff of the White House, announced on X yesterday that last week she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Let's bring up that tweet here. We have it for an element. And of course, like, as part of this, she told the New York Times in a statement that her prognosis is good. It's early detection. She's going to start receiving treatments several days a week in the DC area, and she's going to remain as chief of staff while she goes through this treatment. So I said this on our group text last night. I continue to be impressed by some of the ladies in the inner circle in the Trump orbit. I mean, Caroline Leavitt having a baby, coming back to work just a few days later after the president was shot at, literally returned to work in like a week. And here you have Susie Wiles, who's going to be working through, it doesn't say chemotherapy. We don't know what kind of treatment.
Yeah, we don't know.
But that's it's incredible. And it really shows the motivation of these women and how seriously they take their jobs. But it's also hard to imagine that this won't change the way the White House operates, Sean. I mean, you worked in the White House, the role of chief of staff is so very important. Like, how do you see this sort of impacting the way things go on in the Trump White House?
It's a really good question, because Susie has led a very drama-free year, which is not normal in Trump.
2 or 3 years. Go back to the campaign.
Well, yeah. I mean, right. But within this, totally within the campaign as well. But here's the question. It's a very DC thing. Does she set the tone, which is, I'm going to be here every other day. This is the battle rhythm. This is the cadence that I still expect. This is the reports that I get, and I'm going to keep my eye on the ball. I think this will be interesting. Does someone try to fill the void? Does someone, very DC, does someone try to figure out how do I fill any kind of potential power vacuum? I would do that at your own peril, between Donald Trump and Susie Wild. I think that would be a very risky play, but it's DC and people are very selfish and stupid sometimes. So I think that's going to matter. And also, like, this is one of those things, like, I just, I think for many of us, we've seen cancer up close, and so when you do that, you just don't know how somebody's going to go through the treatment. That's going to be another aspect of this. It's easy to put out, I shouldn't say that. It's not easy. It's easy to read a tweet for us and to say, wow, she's going to go to work every day and do this. She's going to be the one that goes through this treatment. It's very, very taxing on one's body. And, how she deals with this, that will also, like, have an effect on this. You get tired. It obviously tears down your immunity to things. Do you get a little, so I think we'll see how this goes. Luckily, I feel like the thing that was interesting is that the way this White House is set up, instead of just having like one principal deputy and then kind of like you've got Stephen Miller, Dan Scavino, James Blair, Taylor Budowich was there, he left, but like you've got this sort of team around her of other strong people that aren't trying to, like, you're not reading stories about backstabbing. They play well as a team together.
Right. They're all loyalists to.
They're all loyal. Yeah, but they're loyal to the
president.
They're actually playing well together, right? And that's the difference. We didn't have that dynamic. We had various power cycles trying to go at each other. One, and that made it very difficult. That people would sense, weakness or perceived weakness and try to take somebody out.
Yeah, no, definitely. People still talk about covering Trump 1 versus Trump 2, Sean. Dan, I mean,
we should write a book about that. Call it Trump 2.0 and put it up on Amazon, available for pre-order now.
There you go. This is maybe a couple chapters in Sean's book, perhaps. I mean, Dan, you were raising questions about this. I mean, number one, we know she's going to get these treatments. I mean, maybe they can bring this stuff into the White House. That's actually a question I had, is like, can they actually like bring these treatments to the White House? So she's literally in her desk, like doing stuff while she's getting treatment, or do you have to do these in the hospital? I just frankly just don't know enough.
Just as a side note, every senior staffer at assistant to the president above. So there's ranks in the White House: assistant to the president, deputy assistant to the president, special assistant to the president. The assistants to the president all get medical care via White House, which is out of Walter Reed.
Okay, out of Walter Reed. So you still have to go and be.
Well, I mean, they can bring a lot to you. I don't know enough about what treatments you would be taking, and so, but
Dan, you raised this notion of like everybody wishes Susie Wiles well. She's an incredible person. She's done amazing stuff in terms of keeping the drama at bay. But there's also in Trump world, like the presence, being present, in key moments is so important. Being the last person to talk to the president is so important. You were raising this over text. Like this may start to open up questions about like, what does this look like? And like, this is a very difficult few months for this White House in terms of what's going on with Iran, a huge midterm around the corner. There's a lot.
Well, that's the issue. I mean, my father passed away from cancer 16 years ago. Now, a different form of cancer, but I think Sean mentioned this. Anyone who knows someone who's had to battle this knows there are good days and bad days. There are days when and again, we don't know what kind of treatment she's having, but right. She is going to receive treatment. It is presumably going to attack the cancer to try to get it, out into remission, and so. Things like my dad, I remember, like we all looked at him as a cancer patient. Like, what can we do to help? And his attitude was, I'm going to work every day and nothing's changing, right? And the doctors will tell families, whatever makes them comfortable and relaxed to fight this and be in a good mental place, you have to give them that space, right? If they want to be treated like a cancer patient, treat them that way. If they want to act like they don't have it, that's what you do and you support them. So Susie's saying, hey, I'm coming to work every day. And Trump's like, hey, everything's going to, she's going to be here every day. Well, it's kind of happy talk because what you don't know until you start this, what's going to happen. And as you say, they are right now, I think we'd all agree, it hasn't been the best month. I mean, there's the Iran war, there's the affordability issue. We're going to get to other topics. The midterm map is just kind of getting worse. Things could change, but you're entering a very bumpy period with now your leader or your deputy leader going through a cancer battle. And so we just don't know how they will operate. And Trump, who seems to love her, rely on her, trust her, going back now since 2021. How do they all operate? Do they stay together as a tight-knit family and have each other's back? Or as Sean said, not even just the knife fighting, but the reality of if she is not there and a big decision has to be made, what do? You now have a senior person who may not be there. And that is, again, this is a political show. My heart breaks for her and her family. Cancer's scary, but this is the reality now of what's going to happen.
Keep in mind, we mentioned Caroline Levitt. She's pregnant as well. I think she's due in June, maybe.
It's the spring sometime, late spring, early summer.
I mean, but that's two of these top aides. You know, at some point that just whether you're medically speaking, there's a lot of things that are going on in terms of top people that can't, be completely there all the time, et cetera. So it will be interesting to see how they press through this, but I feel like so far they've exhibited strong team effort, and that will be tested at this point.
I also wonder if they bring back some people that have left, who are part of this like inner close circle. There's a number of them that are operating on the outside that could come back, but we'll see. Okay, let's
have to check Sean's contract. They check those clauses.
Sean, I'm not letting you leave. We put so much work into the show. You're not allowed to go anywhere. Okay. Sean, do you have your Cozy Earth on today?
Well, I was funny. I was getting ready for the show and I thought to myself, but I was like, I'm wearing green and anyway, so no, but I did get a kick out of it because obviously it is what I think about. I wore, of course, just to be clear, I did wear the pajamas last night. It has become my staple, and you guys know I put it up yesterday. Dan sort of made me realize it's getting to be spring. I got to switch from the flannel, which I love, to a much more spring, summer, Cozy Earth pajama. And when I couldn't choose, what did I do? I got both, the bamboo one, and then there's a light pajama. I didn't want to choose. So because I've got the code Huddle that gets 20% off at Cozy Earth, I chose both. And so as the weather, and right now, use this as a great opportunity. If you did get the flannel, if you've watched the weather, at least in this whole greater Washington area, you know that it's going to go back and forth and it'll stay cold for another couple of weeks. But spring is around the corner. Get those Cozy Earth joggers, get the pajamas for the spring, summer. There's so many great things. And like I said, the beautiful thing is if you've got code Huddle, you can go to cozyearth.com and it's a great gift. That's the thing I've realized. No matter who's in your life, you're like, what's that one thing I can get them? Something from Cozy Earth, an eye mask, a candle, a towel, you name it. It's always great. Cozyearth.com. Use code Huddle.
There we go.
By the way, total side note, if you don't follow Sean on social media, go look. Speaking of pants, I love those St. Patrick's Day green and white.
Yeah, so I'll tell you.
I mean,
Lord.
Can I tell you the funniest thing? So I have this pair, just so everyone's clear, of Shamrock pants.
Oh my
Lord. When
Lord.
I go for this week, they literally, the Irish ambassador says to me, Sean, you're going to wear the trousers, aren't you? So I have to wear the but I've never worn them to the White House. And today will be the first time. I spoke to the Taoiseach last night and he said, it was a black tie event. And he said, Sean, no trousers, huh? And I said, well, Taoiseach, it's a black tie event. I thought it might work, but I will wear them today at the White House. I'll post them on Instagram. They are on, I think, from the ambassador's house as well. Residents.
Sean Trump's a pretty formal guy. Does he like that preppy waspy stuff, or is he like, Sean, what are you doing?
I think he's realized that's I don't know that would help me. I'll tell you what, Dan, I'm going to wear the Florsheim shoes. I'll wear them. So I'll combine them with something that he likes.
Another story for another day.
Yeah. Okay. But I'll tell you, I am, we'll see. I've never worn them before for that reason, but you know what? I got enough requests to wear them to the White House. So
stay tuned, America.
Stay tuned.
You're going to have to tell us about the reaction.
Press conference. We may know why right here. Yep.
Amazing. All right, let's keep moving. Let's talk about Republicans' vaccine problem. So RFK's MAHA agenda, at least the vaccine side of it, took a hit yesterday. A federal judge in Massachusetts, a Biden appointee, I should say, blocked the government from implementing a series of decisions on vaccines. The judge also reversed all decisions made by this panel that Mr. Kennedy selected, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, which makes recommendations on vaccines. The judge said 6 of the 15 panelists appear to have don't appear to have any meaningful experience in vaccines and relevant science. Sean, this ruling comes, we talked about this probably about a month ago. It comes as the administration has been trying to sort of refocus the MAHA agenda on the food, redoing the food groups, et cetera, right? Diet, which is broadly popular and has a lot of support, sort of away from the vaccine stuff that can be a little politically sticky. Do you think the administration fights back in court right now, even though it's in a midterm right now?
I do, for different reasons. And so again, there's a couple things. The judge basically, what I have an issue with is if you can appoint, if Congress gives an agency the ability to appoint people and to set policy, but then a judge says, but you can't undo that. That seems kind of silly. Like, it just on its face doesn't make sense. You can't say that the law gives you the authority to do something at the executive level, whether it's personnel or policy, but then you don't have the same authority to undo it. And that's silly. So I think the administration will fight back on that front, on the power front, and say, we have the absolute authority to do this. Now, whether or not then they follow up on the policy is a second issue. The thing that's really interesting to me on the vaccine front, which again, considering how much big pharma has sway in the media and in so much else, this is where I will be interested. What Bobby has said, just to be clear, is I believe the number right now is 18 vaccines are mandated for children. And he has said, we are going to change that to 11 and allow doctors and patients to determine whether the other 7 make sense at the right time. So in other words, instead of giving your kid 18 jabs in 24 hours, does it make sense in a lot of cases to wait, like to give certain kids them a little later when it might make more sense, and let that doctor-patient relationship play out? It's a question of mandate. And then the other issue is on the ACIP panel. Again, why is a judge getting to determine who's qualified and not? That's not an Article 3 thing. That's the authority to appoint individuals to this panel was given to HHS by Congress. For a judge to get in and to make qualifications is completely inappropriate.
Dan, I want to get your reaction to that, is what he's saying about the merits of the ruling. But first, let's bring up this element because the politics of this are, again, just interesting. Axios has this new poll out this morning. Just 6 in 10 Americans now trust the government's childhood vaccine recommendations. It's still a majority, according to this new poll, but it's down from 71% when they asked the question in June. So losing popularity. I mean, do Democrats see this as an opening?
Yeah, no, Democrats see this as a total winner, and the White House does too, which is their own polling. They've been telling Capitol Hill, like, we do not, and the White House has been slowly taking over. I mean, we haven't talked about this, but Kennedy's lost some staff. Some others have been layered with political people out of the White House trying to take reins to prevent these type of conversations in the press. This is another issue. Who is seen as more extreme or chaotic? The Democrats or the Republicans? Every time we're talking about vaccines right now is not a good day for Republicans. So, I mean, that's just, you can say I'm wrong on substance or Sean is right on the process and the judicial, the legal ruling. But as raw politics today, vaccines are not good for Republicans. And that's why the White House keeps counseling, don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah. So maybe they appeal it just to like
process,
plant a flag in the ground saying we do have this authority, but then kind of let the ruling, the policy of it continue. We'll see. Very quickly, Governor Shapiro tests Israel message. So the Pennsylvania governor, he's been making the rounds on these progressive podcasts lately, Pod Save America, a few other ones, trying out this new, more moderate pro-Israel message. He criticizes Bibi Netanyahu, says Israel's actions that they've done terrible things, and that he's criticized Israel settlers attacking some Palestinians. But he's also arguing that the Democratic Party must first, before they have any of this conversation, that they need to acknowledge that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish state. And he is underscoring that. Dan, a lot of Democratic policymakers, they are looking to find the right balance to talk about this, right? Support Israel, but also criticize Israel. What is the balance? I can see them adopting this, but I can also hear the base not liking it and totally rejecting it.
Well, I think this is the interesting thing. He's trying to box in the critics, right? Because if it's AOC and somewhat increasingly like Gavin Newsom, when this topic comes up, their first response is to criticize Israel, their conduct, Netanyahu as a leader. And what Shapiro is doing is saying, whoa, 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 time out. Before we get to criticism, which he says some is legitimate, we have to start with the premise that Israel has a right to exist and to kind of safely exist in that neighborhood. And so now what he's going to try to do is get people, and I think even on the MS Now crowd, they'll say, well, wait, okay, yep. But you agree, Congressperson X or Y or governor, Israel has a right to exist. So now the question is, does AOC and others look in the camera and say, yes, of course they do? So if you're Shapiro, this is a leadership opportunity. So I'm going to be really curious. This is what you do during this period. You wrote test messages. You see the responses. And I think it's clever what he's doing.
Do you think people like AOC will do that? Because now that becomes the
yes,
question. Reporters stick their microphone in their faces and say, Josh Shapiro says we have to first agree this before we talk about it.
I think if a Democrat were to say Israel does not have a right to exist, that would be I think it's abhorrent, but B, 100%. I think the country would revolt and say, whoa. Israel has a right to exist. Yeah. I don't like the wars. I don't like, A, B, C, or D. That's fine. We can have that argument. But fundamentally, they have a right to exist.
Do you worry, though, that the base has become they've moved so much on this that they're going to pressure people like AOC to not even say that? As crazy as that might sound.
Yeah, there's two different parts of the base. There's the very extreme, and then there's the kind of more moderate part of the base. But look, we talked yesterday. AIPAC is spending $21 million in the state of Illinois in Democratic primaries. That tells you where where Israel or where the Jewish, intelligentsia are, where the base of the party is. We're going to see, and look, we haven't talked about it, but then you have stuff like Megyn Kelly and Josh Shapiro going to war. It's both parties right now have restless bases, different angles, same topic, our relationship with Israel.
Oh, yeah, I will say, it would be interesting to me to see, I think some of the stuff in our party is a little clickbaity. Yep. People trying to, as opposed to where I do think that, and I'm not, I think the majority of the movement of the party still stands with Israel. I think in your party, this to me is going to be fascinating as you guys go through a primary for president, because I think you're right. I mean, Shapiro's trying to set the playing field. This is what it needs to look like. And to Rachel's point, are reporters, are pundits going to ask the other potentials in that way? Are they going to frame it? Shapiro says, do you agree? Right? Does Shapiro get to set the table for everybody else to answer to? I don't know. That's going to be fascinating to me, because I think from just hearing some of the rhetoric, it's not like a 50-50. I think that the way I perceive the base of the Democratic Party right now is it's like a 70-30. I think the Free Palestine movement is massive.
Do you know who I want to hear answer that question? Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Because she tied herself in knots on this issue. Her book talks about how much they struggled with this issue. Can she just look in the camera and immediately answer it? Or does she go into her, bob and weave, not directly answering the question?
Yeah, I can almost hear the awkward response right now as you say that. Okay, guys, let's take some questions. We're a little late to questions, so I'll try to move quicker tomorrow to get us more questions. Here we go. Good morning, Republican lady. Question on the matter of impatience. Are Americans getting tired of the No Kings movement and the shutdown games of the Dems? Dan, what positive message are Dems offering? Defeatists? Question mark.
I haven't heard the No Kings movement here in a little bit.
They're almost a non-issue.
I mean, the shut about it. I think I even talked to a family member who would be marching with the No Kings, who said the Democratic Party needs to reopen the government or DHS on that front. So I don't think there is a good argument on the government shutdown much longer. The facts have changed. The party should change its position.
Yeah, I feel like No Kings is just I see it every once in a while, but it's it doesn't seem
it doesn't compare to war. I mean, that's the reality, right? War is your tax dollars, your money. No Kings is people
Yeah.
marching.
Well, I will say, I think this DHS thing is going to crescendo, and the question is when.
Yep,
Yeah.
agreed.
And I find this, like, Dan's point yesterday was good in the sense that Republicans should be keeping their foot on the pedal on this instead of letting it up and trying to, like, it is weird. Like, we're not doing what we should be doing because of the sequencing of the SAVE Act. But I do think that's the only thing that's giving Democrats a break right now.
Yeah. Let's take another question. Okay, Mark, good morning. Question. Iran studied our wars and runs a decentralized mosaic defense where units do not need orders from the top and operate independently. Can we ever win this kind of war?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I mean, it goes to what Sean was saying earlier, which is the kind of org chart of leadership we're taking out, and the Israelis one by one, or, dozen by dozen. I don't know. I mean, it's like the Godfather argument, right? When they go to kill the young son, because the guy says when he grows up bigger and stronger, he's going to come back and seek revenge. I don't know.
It seems like the best case scenario is that they find a leader that's like less hostile to the U.S. and like then the focus shifts inward. But we're just not even.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
I keep saying this, that I had to assume and have to assume that the Mossad and CIA has somebody or a group ready to go in. And I keep waiting for that to happen. Like, I can't believe Israel was like, well, we just hope somebody rises.
I feel like this morning I had this epiphany where I was thinking back to the speaker's race. This is and I was like, remember, like, at certain point, somebody said, like, can't we just get, like, there was a feeling in my party where I felt like we had to go through the motions. We had to try this. We had to show that so-and-so didn't have the vote. So-and-so had to have their turn. They didn't have the vote. We needed to go through it to allow people to have their say. I hope that part of what's happening right now is that Iran's got to go through some of this themselves, where we know that we just can't install somebody or push somebody forward because that person's not going to be seen as legitimate. And that we've got to let the son have his turn. We've got to let this other person. So I don't think that it's not that they don't have it. I think that there's a recognition that you can't force it. Yeah. So I do think that. And to answer your question, Mark, I think the other thing is there is an element that I am a believer that you can't just change an ideology that says death to America and replace a leader or two, right? Yeah. But part of what we have done when I talk about the decimating and the degradation of their military capability, it's also not just the current weaponry, their industrial base, their ability to build anything back. I don't know that we've set them back maybe more than 5-10 years or something like that, but that's still 5 or 10 years that we can get a leader in, we can remonitor them. But I don't think you're going to wake up. They're not going to have a leader that comes in a week or 5 weeks and says, you know what, we've got to change. We've been so wrong about America. We love you guys. We want so much, like, send us the Kardashians. We're all in. It's just not going to happen. But I do think that one of the untold stories is that we have not just set back their nuclear capabilities, hopefully, but their entire defense industrial complex has been decimated. And that will prevent them from posing from any of these smaller proxies having the access to the weaponry that they need.
Unless China and Russia restock them.
Well, remember, it's not, just to be clear, Iran was stocking Russia with drones. I mean, it's when you take out all of Iran, you're actually helping Ukraine, just as a side note.
There you go. Let's do a couple more. Try to move these quickly. All right. Robert, good morning. Question. How much is the World Cup a mess right now? Iran's soccer team is seeking to change their matches to occur in Mexico. Did you guys see this story?
Yeah. I haven't followed it too closely, but I have seen the headlines. I've seen other countries don't. I hope the World Cup comes off successfully and everybody participates. And, it's like Sean, when you and I were kids and we boycotted the Moscow games, and then the Russians boycotted the LA games.
But can I just say, I mean, in the vein of media criticism, when I read that story, it was framed as these guys want to do the match in Mexico because they're afraid that we will do something to their soccer players. But I was like, that's kind of seems like BS. What if it's the soccer players want to escape and like they just don't want the headache of them escaping?
Wasn't their basketball team in Australia that sought asylum down there? I mean,
yeah, it just the way the
I mean, it's easy for us to say that, but to Sean's point, they were raised in a culture of death to America, and they don't trust us. It sounds like. I mean, it sounds crazy to us, but you know, we're not in their shoes.
They just had this with the women's which didn't they
it
just
was basketball in Australia?
Oh, it was okay, right? But still, like anyway, it happens. Okay, let's take another one. One more. Okay, Bixby, good morning. Question: with Mamdani's actions over the attempted terror attack, will Democrats start to move away from him in front of the coming elections?
I mean, the Democrats who are with him are still with him. I mean, it's the parts of the base that view the whole picture, the affordability, the sympathy for the Palestinians. I would say the bigger issue for Mamdani, and I mean, somebody, if the New York Post is being fed or has a real great investigatory unit, the stories about the associations of Mamdani's wife are, I mean, your eyes bug out at some of this. I mean, you want to talk about fringe of the base. And of course, that's delicate. You start attacking somebody's wife. You know, somebody attacked my wife about what she's reading online. I don't tell her what she can and cannot read, but whoa, Nelly, it opens your eyes.
Yeah. Well, I just, the thing that's so interesting to me is Mamdani was largely silent and to some extent actually, I think, was so sympathetic to some of these protests at Columbia and other places. And now that it's somewhat personal, he cares a little bit more. It's to me, I don't know. I find it reeks of hypocrisy and patheticness that this guy suddenly cares about a lot now. So I'll leave it at that. I think Democrats, again, have allowed a lot of this violence to occur, have stayed silent, and now suddenly it's interesting what they suddenly care about and when they care about it.
Yeah. Guys, we're at time. Sean, what do you have coming on?
That's an uplifting note to end the show on.
Yay! Well, obviously, we'll do a little St. Patrick's Day tribute, but then Congressman Marlin Stutzman from Indiana will be on. A lot to break down with him. House Republicans just did this big retreat, but also obviously represents Indiana. A lot of people disappointed. I talked to some folks at the Ireland Funds dinner last night who were pissed about Indiana and in our overall redistricting effort. So we'll see.
Very good. All right, guys, we will be back tomorrow at 8:30. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow. Happy St. Patty's Day.